Hello, this video is for Monday, August 31. Today in our Bible overview reading plan, we're looking at Nehemiah chapter 2 together. I think it'd be great if you'd read Nehemiah 2 on your own before you go any farther. If you want to read that passage online, I've got a link that I've posted in the description of this video. So with the book of Nehemiah, we've jumped forward in time a little bit again. This is after the days of the rebuilding of the temple. But God's people are back living in their homeland and in the city of Jerusalem. But there's still trouble. The wall of Jerusalem has been destroyed. And word of this gets to Nehemiah, one of God's people, who's still living in the land of Persia. He's a servant of the king. And he's the cupbearer. He brings wine to the king, and so he has the job of making sure the wine hasn't been poisoned or tampered with. And Nehemiah is just broken up about his people being in danger and the wall of Jerusalem being destroyed. And so God works out these circumstances to send Nehemiah to Jerusalem so that Nehemiah is able to get support from the king of Persia and get supplies and then encourage the people to rebuild the wall. And during this time, there are enemies of God's people, the Israelites, people from other nations and other religious faiths that are opposing them and trying to intimidate them. And we see through Nehemiah that God is protecting his people. Nehemiah says we don't need to be afraid of these other people, that they may try to harm us, they may even hurt us some, but we know that God is with us to protect us, and so we don't have to be afraid. And the rebuilding of the wall, in some ways, is a symbol of God protecting his people and keeping them from being overrun by the other nations. There's more to Nehemiah. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But I think that this lesson applies to God's people today. That sometimes God's people face opposition. Maybe not so much in the United States, but in other countries, Christians are persecuted for their faith. They have enemies that want to have them imprisoned or put to death. And we see from Nehemiah and other places in the Bible that God watches out for his people. He protects us. And it doesn't mean that we'll never get hurt, that we'll never have trouble or suffering. But God says that because of Jesus' victory over sin and death and evil, nothing can take us away from him. God is always with us. Even though we suffer, God never abandons us. And God promises us that he will save us from all trouble someday, that Jesus will return and there will be no more suffering or evil. And God will rescue us entirely so that we live forever with him in perfect joy and happiness. And so that gives us courage in the face of suffering. We don't have to look elsewhere for help. We don't have to live in fear of other nations because we serve a God who is stronger than anything else and a God who always cares about us. So those are my thoughts with today's passage. If you'd like to share comments or questions, please go ahead and do so. I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.